How's your week been? What have you been up to? I saw you were playing some Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, dude. I'm
How
still
was
playing Baldur's Gate. I'm doing well with it. I'm having tons of fun still playing with my brothers, focusing on my playthrough of a paladin that I am role-playing off of The Green Knight. Have you seen that movie?
Oh, I want to see it. I also want to see Monkey Man, which is same actor.
Oh, yeah. Well, the Green Knight's great. It's classic Anglo-Saxon like folklore, and I'm taking that kind of like foresty, fey, elvish, like kind of Green Knight kind of aspect, and role-playing this ancient Oath of Ancients paladin. So it's like I'm kind of more sensitive to like the nature of Faerun and everything. So that's been super fun. I'm like starting to head towards Act 2, and I'm just amazed of how big Act 1 is. It is such, if this is only Act 1, like I totally understand why people play like this game for hundreds and hundreds of hours. So I'm total fanboy right now of Baldur's Gate, still doing that. Still watching Fallout and having a good time with it. I think it's been a month since it's come out.
Wow, that's crazy. Time flies.
Yeah.
It would make sense because we're on episode 4 now. So
right. Yeah, it doesn't feel like it's been that long, but it's already been a month. And I checked, like it's still like #1 on Amazon right now.
Crazy. I think the show has had way bigger of an impact than anyone expected. Like the crew, Bethesda, Amazon, I don't think anyone expected it to be this massive. And
right.
Yeah, every time I rewatch it, I pick up on new things. This is the 4th episode that we're talking about today, which is the Ghouls. This is, I think, my favorite episode, if not one of my favorite episodes. What did you overall think about the episode?
I really like this episode. I think there's a lot to it. I'm just amazed of how many Easter eggs I'm seeing with each episode as I rewatch.
What are some of the What are some of the Easter eggs that you've spotted so far?
Well, like for this episode, let me check the notes really quick to refresh my memory. One of the things this was like a really big one for me, rewatching it again, is noticing that she walked out of, after raiding that whole entire supermarket, she walks out wearing some leather armor pieces that you can put, like in the game, like you can put those leather pieces on top of your vault suit as well. And I didn't notice that for the first time. But after I was replaying some Fallout and I was doing that to my character and I watched this episode, I'm like, dude, that's so sick how they incorporate some game lore and just the plot, and just like kind of like what people would do in the game, like kind of go find themselves at a raiders camp. Got to raid the whole thing, get some loot, get out of there, right? And maybe make some tough decisions, like with between like Lucy and the Ghoul, how we saw that. So I thought this episode was like really good at sharing almost the action RPG aspect of Fallout. So that was really fun to see that this time around. What about you? Did you notice any Easter eggs that stood out to you, like the leather armor pieces?
One that I noticed was it plays an important plot point, but I want to say it's called like Abraxo. It's one of the consumables in the game, and I thought the way they incorporated that as like a narrative device was really good. So that definitely stood out to me.
Right.
Let's see what else was like. It's hard for me to pinpoint like something that's an Easter egg. There's a lot of stuff I noticed
Well,
the
there's a
second
lot of
time
like
around.
there's a lot of computer stuff with the vault,
Oh,
which is
that's
kind of
right.
cool, right? To see how just like
Right,
clicking through the
right,
different logs and stuff, like that's what you would do in the game, you know?
right. Another one is there's a Fallout 3 vault. I forget which number it is, but if you walk in, there's a bunch of guys that are clones that are saying the name Gary. They're all named Gary. And I was wondering if her saying her name Martha was like a callback to that vault. I've never entered that vault in my own gameplay,
Me
but I've
neither.
seen footage of it and mentioning of it in documentaries and other YouTubers. So that was one. And then also just the general vibe of the grocery store reminds me a lot of Fallout 3. And they even kind of incorporate some of that like sickly green color that I love from
Yes.
Fallout 3 and The Matrix. And so that like lighting and color to me felt very Fallout 3. And then I also was getting these subtle Indiana Jones moments. Like, I don't know if it was intentional or subliminal or by accident, but you know, obviously now this is a massive stretch and I don't think this actually has anything to do with Indiana Jones. But you know, you're saying raiders, right? They're going in and they're like talking to raiders, they're meeting raiders, and then they're like diving deeper into the vault. And to me, that just the way like that the skeletons look and the like almost like they're mummies, it just felt a lot like the Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland if you've
Right.
ever been on it, where you're kind of like entering the remains of a mystery. And I
Right.
thought, you know, Todd Howard is a huge Indiana Jones fan. And I was like, wow, this really does feel like a classic adventure, the way that
Right.
they're going into the vault. And there's the mystery and there's clearly something went wrong. So that part, it also, you know, Indiana Jones takes place in like post World War II, I want to say, sometimes pre World War II. So I think that this era and the style also gives me a little bit of that like Indiana Jones feel.
Right.
But let's dive into the breakdown. So if you guys haven't watched before, we've been using the Fallout Wiki to kind of guide us through the summaries, and I kind of have my own discussion questions that we'll use as jumping off points. So it's not like a complete summary all the time. Sometimes we like to just zone in on the most
Right.
interesting part of a scene. So the first
Yes.
scene stars the ghoul, and in the wiki, their summary states that he's suffering from withdrawal, he's coughing, they're marching through the desert, and they pass a medical clinic, and hear someone yelling, "My name is Roger." So this scene is a really powerful opening scene. This is where they essentially meet another ghoul who is like in control of his mental faculties, like the ghoul in our mainline story. And
Mm-hmm.
so I thought that this interaction showed a lot. It shows like what
Yes.
someone can become, you know, when they're exposed. And it's sad because you don't even get the vibe that Roger is bad. And so I think that like Roger seems like he's a good person, or
Right.
at least like has a kind heart. And so when you watch that dissension, I think that's a big theme of the episode. So it was a really cool way to open the episode because it sets
Totally.
up the stakes for what the vials are, why you
Yeah.
need the vials. But then it also freaking shows us that the ghoul is essentially a cannibal. And
Right.
to go from the first episode meeting his character as a human to now you see the disintegration of existing in the wasteland. So what did you think of the butt jerky, the meeting Roger, you know, having they call humans smoothies, the mistreatment of the ghouls. What did you
Yeah.
think of this like opening scene?
Yeah, I think it's a really great way to start off the episode, especially with you know, the themes that they're talking about and how they're trying to grow these characters in this specific episode. I think it was a great way to start it. I I really enjoyed kind of seeing getting a little bit of a foreshadow, or like kind of like I felt like the writers were trying to tell me like, hey, this is like what could happen to one of your favorite characters, the Ghoul, if they don't maintain their I guess all their concoctions of drugs and their systems and stuff, right? This could possibly happen. We don't want this to happen, so this is something that we're gonna have to like deal with this episode, right? So it's creating like high stakes already. I think it also this whole entire time, the last couple of episodes with Cooper Howard, the Ghoul, like I think they've been like trying to make you feel sad for him, kind of like fall in love with Cooper Howard, and then feel sad for what he's become, and then now you're kind of asking yourself, is Cooper Howard still somewhere in the Ghoul? Is there still a part of him? And I love how he takes out what's the name of the other Ghoul you were saying?
Roger.
I love how he takes out Roger. It reminds me, did you ever read the book of Mice and Men?
Oh yeah.
So
totally.
sorry for spoilers for that book, but that you're supposed to read that in like 8th grade or something like that. At the end of that book, one of the brothers, takes his dumb brother who ends up, causing problems, murdering. And he's like not so smart. He's like losing his brain. But he takes him over to like a nice scenic view, shares a memory with him, and kills his brother, as he's having that nice memory with him. And it kind of reminded me of what happened between the Ghoul and gosh, I forgot his name again. Bart?
Roger.
So like when he did that, it was interesting to see, like, for me, I was like, oh, like he has a little bit of sympathy. He's trying to make him talk about memories with his mom with apple pie, and then boom, done. And I immediately thought of that book, and I was like, oh, he's being merciful. But Lucy did not think that. It's cool to how she has a different set of morals, and he does too. And he comes from he probably read of Mice and Men, and that's where he got the idea, maybe. I don't know, right? So I just think this show has great openings. This set up this episode really well. It's answering the questions I want to know about the Ghoul. It's very interesting. I think this episode 4 is where it picks up, like we were saying last week.
Right. And I also think like the way that he's kind of teaching her the school of hard knocks, even by, like you said, she's really pissed off about it. And, but she does mention the Great Plague of 77 in Vault 33. Which is interesting. I would love to learn more. Where she says her mother starved and her father dropped 128 pounds, and then the Ghoul tells her what people say they did and what people really did. Like there's a difference, So kind of introducing the question also that he recognized her last name, so he knows her dad.
There's something more to it.
So there's a lot of cool moments in there, and setting up the following scene. So in Vault 33, they're trying to elect a new overseer. So you have Reg, Woody, and Betty. Those are the candidates, and Woody tells Reg that he tried interrogating an imprisoned Raider to no effect. So Betty confronts Norm eventually about his suggestion at the assembly, and Norm remembers hiding when the Raiders attacked. Betty advises him to tread lightly as he wrestles with his anger, stating that at least as the last McLean, his words carry more weight among the population than he realizes. So this is kind of, this summary sets up, a showdown, I think, between Betty and between Norm. And I don't think that showdown has really quite happened in season 1, even with all the episodes. So this is kind of like a season 2 setup. But what do you have any thoughts in terms of like how the Raiders are portrayed in this episode? And like do we think? I mean, I think it's pretty obvious, but like it seems like Norm is going to get more and more clever as he's like that's really his strength. And so yeah, I like what were your thoughts on the Raiders and Norm?
Yeah, I think it's cool that Norm is trying to like um, feed more into his concerns with what's happening in the vault. I think what his storyline is bringing to the show is like crucial. He's like really keeping, for me, the aspect of true horror alive. Where true horror for me, there's an aspect of I don't see what's in the dark. I don't see what's around that corner. I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm just getting a lot of creepy, scary images, like you were saying with when they went through Vault. Was it 32? They go through. They see all those like dead, rotting bodies, right? Some of them stabbed, some of them look like they killed themselves, some of them choking each other, right? And that last one with the overseer like smiling and stuff, super creepy. I think the rest of the show has like kind of a little bit of a different tone. Like it's almost like each character, like their storyline has a little bit of a different tone, which is cool. It's reflective of the game. Like it did, like a true RPG, you can have like a different tone with each playthrough you have. But I really appreciate having this horror tone, this mystery of what happened in the vaults. The vaults aren't as nice and as heavenly as they seem. I think it was very smart writing to keep that going for me, because we got that with the first episode, seeing the nukes drop, a crazy, scary scene, and you're already like horror, right? And so I think this Vault 33 stuff keeps it in line. In regards to like the Raiders, I'm noticing they seem like, at least in this episode, like they're calming down a little bit, and it makes me wonder, like in season 2, are we going to see a Raider who like totally kind of calms down, kind of like sneaks his way into the group, or are we going to see like Norm release them, like make a deal? Like I think there's something going on where now the Raiders, they're not just maniacs now. Like you can have these conversations with them. They're going to use that for sure. And the other part I liked about this scene is Woody and Reg talking about their posters that they made, and how it's just like setting up like we're super civil here. I like your poster, I like your poster too, I'll vote for you, I'll vote for you. Like super civil and fake, and it's like kind of funny. So yeah, I enjoy the balance with that, so because it is also very horrific what they're dealing with, so it's nice to have that kind of light banter.
Yeah, if you're a fan of Severance, I always confuse which one's Woody and which one's Reg, but one of them is in Severance. And I mean, can you imagine? Like now, all he needs to do is be in Silo, and then he's in all 3.
I think it's
Fallout
Woody.
Like shows. Is it Woody? Okay.
Yeah, it's Woody, I think.
The other actress I wanted to look up was I forget her name. It's coming up, but she's really good, so I'll save that for when we get to that. So going back to Lucy and the Ghoul, she drinks irradiated water, and he likes the way the wiki summary describes it, which I agree with, is that it's almost like the Ghoul takes pleasure in seeing her world crash down. It's like kind of like welcome to the real world. And so there's a cool quote where he basically tells her, "I'm you, sweetie, just give it a little time." And then some of my other notes I have here is like it's cool that we see the Ghoul's weakness, because this is when I believe his asthma essentially starts kicking in, starts wheezing, and they also cut each other's fingers off, which is another cool parallel that I think is really interesting. And I always get nervous when characters lose fingers, because I'm always thinking, are they going to really CGI this character's fingers for the rest of the show or for the rest of the movie? And they solve both of those problems. Right. They solve both of those problems pretty quickly. And but I thought it was a good battle between the two of them. I really like the lasso scene where he lassos her. There's like some cool stunts in this episode. So my question is, why does the ghoul have to eat the other ghoul? Like because it shows the butt jerky on his backpack, and I'm like there's got to be more food options for him. Rad roaches. So it almost seems like he likes it and takes pleasure in eating his friends. Because like, why else? I don't know. Like, you would think someone as smart as him and as savvy as him would like stock up on food and have a ton of food with him. But I guess his pack gets destroyed, and that's why they're going to where they're going now. So maybe it's because that was the only food he had.
Right.
But,
that's what my guess is.
That was one of my questions.
Like,
and then,
like maybe he's doing that because, one, it's right there, it's convenient. You were saying he kind of gets this enjoyment at seeing Lucy like squirm and like hit the real world. So maybe in his head, it's a little bit of combination of both of like, hey, I'm running low on food. I don't want to even go find her food. It's right here. If she's going to need to eat, if I'm going to need to eat, this is it, And you know what? Why don't you get to work too? Why don't you do some work so you can eat as well? Like I think it was all kind of just in spite of Lucy in a way. But also like, I think the number one thing on his mind is like, I have to find drugs. Like, I have to find this. And if I can't find it here, then we're just going to continue the plan and take Lucy and, drop her off and make that trade. So, yeah, I think it was just out of spite of Lucy almost pretty much.
And then I also kind of figured that like her drinking the radiated water was almost like a baptism for her, because she's descending, and by the end we see like the final form of her in the leather pouch, or the leather armor and all that stuff. So I think drinking the water is a part of becoming a wastelander, someone who surface dweller, So that part I thought was cool. Obviously I wanted to mention how the game they use a lot of the same sound effects from Bethesda, but also Todd Howard had mentioned that the movies or the TV production was taking files directly from Bethesda and 3D printing stuff, trying to get stuff as close to scale as possible. I believe he told that to Kind of Funny. That was a really cool interview he recently did. But yeah, so what else did I write here then? I think, I like when they take the fingers from each other, the ghoul says, that right there is the closest thing we've had to an honest exchange so far. So I thought that was cool. Like, she's getting on his level. She's starting to, understand how to survive as a surface dweller. And then we're back to Vault 33. Now, this scene was hilarious. So the character that I was thinking of is Steph. I think that actress is amazing. She gives major Mad Men vibes, and her and Chet's chemistry is really, really good. So this actor's name is Annabelle O'Hagan. So I don't think she's in much big television previous to this. This seems like maybe her big breakthrough, which is really impressive. But yeah, so I thought their relationship was funny and very confusing, because in one hand, it seems like she despised the fact that she had an arranged marriage with Bert. But then in another hand, it's like she forces Chet to wear Bert's scarf and sweater and like kind of uses it as a guise to start a romantic relationship with Chet, and Chet plays along, which is also hilarious. And when she hands him the shoe, and it's like the little shoe. Yeah. So
I'll
funny.
Try to wear these.
Right. The actor who plays Chet, he reminds me of a little bit of Paul Rudd and a little bit of the actor who plays Deadpool. I don't know why I'm blanking on his name.
He reminds me of Seth MacFarlane, the creator of Family Guy, kind of, to me.
Oh, that's hilarious. I could totally see that too. Yeah. Yeah, he's a great actor. I think he brings a lot of great moments to the cast. So his name is Dave Register. He's hilarious and they have great chemistry together. It's just like, again, it's showing how all these different vignettes can be equally interesting.
Yeah.
And so they, as they're starting up a romance, they go into labor, and then I think that's the end of that scene, but we do come back to them, and then we have back to the ghoul. Now this is where we get to the super duper market, which, or I guess super duper mart. This is the scene that really gives me Fallout 3 vibes. Like, I love when you're playing Fallout 3 and you descend into the grocery stores as if they're kind of dungeons. And I think that the ambiance and never knowing what could be around the corner is captured really well here. So Snip Snip is the robot, played by one of my favorite comedians, and I want to make sure I get his name right. It is Matthew Berry. Yeah, Matt Berry. But Matt Berry is in a lot of dark comedies. My favorite is he's from the IT Crowd, which a lot of people know him as. But he's also in What We Do in the Shadows, is one of my favorite shows.
That's a good show.
And he's hilarious.
Yeah.
So when I heard his voice, I immediately recognized it. I was like, oh my God. So Snip Snip is an awesome character. By the way this scene ends, I'm not really sure if Snip Snip can come back, but I think he should. Yeah. But I guess Matthew Berry, we find out later that, he gives his voice to Vault-tec. So I wonder if he voices all of the robots. So
he has to.
Therefore, he has to. Right. So that would be sick. I don't think he does the robots in the game, but I would love to have him do the robots in the game.
I think it sounds amazing. Just like the game, if not better, dude. Like I love this whole scene with Snip Snip and being inside the mart. You're right, Spencer. This is like the most Fallout it's ever been, in a way. That's probably why you love this episode so much. It's so Fallout. This whole section of the episode. It's really fun.
Yeah, so they get into the mart. She thinks they're gonna turn her into basically human trafficker, but it turns out they want her organs, and so she fights with Snip Snip. But first, he fixes her finger, and then the actor, there's that guy who's sitting on the couch. He's so recognizable. He's in so many things. He's another comedian. Do you know who I'm talking about?
I know who you're talking about. He's like always like, he's kind of like always like the side kind of random character, like he always plays the same character in every movie. Which is like fried, burnt out guy.
Right. I would love to know what's the stuff that we recognize him from. Oh, he's in Reservation Dogs on Hulu. Oh, he's also in Stranger Things. I mean, that's what I wanted to say, but I don't remember who he plays in Stranger Things.
Seems like he would be a bus driver, like from The Simpsons or something.
Yeah, he's great. And I thought it was perfect putting him in this scene because, again, their balance of comedy and just the fact that he's so blasé about doing horrible things to people, I think is also very realistic. And I thought the way they incorporated the TV was really, really smart.
Yeah. It also kind of reminded me
the
of
way they...
Idiocracy. Have you seen Idiocracy?
No.
Okay.
What's that?
Owen Wilson's brother, I forgot his name, the guy with the brown hair.
Luke,
I don't know
Luke?
if you know him, but
Luke
he
Wilson,
and what's his face, or her face. She was on SNL. Maya
Rudolph.
Yes, so it's them, the Wilson and Maya Rudolph. And this movie's hilarious, dude. This movie had Crocs before Crocs were cool. But so if you haven't seen it, go check out Idiocracy. But like that guy and like kind of this scene where they're like laying there just like watching TV and stuff, like is totally like the future is stupid, you know, like it's totally that vibe of like everyone's like dumb now, you know. So go check that out because you might get that reference now after seeing this episode.
One thing to consider with all of these great performances is how much is Bethesda's voice acting budget gonna shoot up for the next Fallout game, because Bethesda is known for having like a couple actors do all of the voices. Like I always laugh when Mo and I are playing Skyrim and I'm like, just so you know, the studio is in Maryland and everyone just sounds like they're in Maryland. Like like there's just Americans everywhere.
There's like 3 voices. I hope that whole entire game.
Right. So I hope that they up that VO budget and get some of these people to bring in these different flavors. And that's what Obsidian did so well with the Outer Worlds is the voice performances are so good.
Much better.
And they suck you in and they feel so diverse and so dynamic that I hope that Bethesda kind of picks up on some of that with future Fallout games. Because I think that those performances are so important.
Yeah, performance is super important because this is what makes you want to keep playing these kind of RPGs when you want to fall in love with the character. And imagine if like Baldur's Gate did not have like the character performances they have. It's huge. There's even people love it so much that there's content of the voice actors now, and they're profiting off this on YouTube, making D&D playthrough videos, or I'm playing through the game and you get to listen to them talk as their character. Like it's a big awesome thing, and I want to see more of it. Again, there's times that are appropriate for like I still play, you know, like kind of older style game pixel art where there's no voice acting and the RPG is still fantastic, right? But in other cases, like with Larian Studios and Baldur's Gate, I can't imagine that game without voice acting. So they need to find like what works for them. And I think because they already went down the voice acting route and people are already like laughing about that, they kind of force themselves into a corner of like, we have to now kind of focus on that, especially with this TV show where now you're actually getting some really good characters and voice acting. Now people have that in their head and they're going to compare the TV show to your game. So good luck, Todd Howard. You got to do it. I think the show had a better launch than Fallout 4, dude.
I mean, I think that's why Todd said this is kind of like, I mean, don't quote me, but you know, it feels like the marketing and the way that they presented this is a Fallout story. Like they wanted to make sure everyone got credit for this as a Fallout installment. And I think Todd even says that, like, he wants every Fallout thing to be its own. And like you could be every piece of Fallout content could be a good jumping off point for someone because they all have different flavors. But I think every gamer is thinking like, well, we got to take some of those flavors and put those into the next game.
Yes.
So I think you're right.
Excuse me.
Okay, so my notes were the funny line from Matt Berry is "You seem to be a woman." He says that and he like delivers it perfectly to her, and then when he pulls out the finger drawer and there's like a bunch of fingers, and I feel like there's a couple like mutated fingers in there. I thought that was funny. And then I like the like VFX for the way that you see that robotic surgery where it's like zapping and putting it together. I think that was a really cool high production VFX shot. I thought that the way that they have that charred finger like on her hand and it's like a totally different color is so gross. But yeah, just overall, I love the cinematography. And then Matt Berry tries to reassure her by saying, "I'm simply going to harvest your organs." So yeah, that was good. And then back to Norm. So he's bringing dessert to the prisoners, right? And so this kind of setting up a plot point, which you had mentioned you would be curious to see more about the Raiders, but don't all the Raiders die because they get poisoned?
Oh gosh, I can't remember. They might all be dead. I think
they all get poisoned by this
I just thought it was interesting
then,
how they didn't get mad when he said you can have the cake. I thought the Raiders would be like, I want the cake, you know, but the Raiders were like,
yeah,
kind of
a lot of those scenes, yeah, those scenes are kind of confusing. There's like the whole cake situation is not where I thought it was gonna go, and yeah, it was just it was confusing. I think it's intentionally confusing.
Mm-hmm.
I think we're supposed to question if it was Steph, Betty, or Norm who did it. And I don't think we know yet.
Okay.
So yeah, Norm tries to access the Vault 32 record. He's denied, and he's trying to, obviously uncover that stuff. And then Chet and Norm sneak into Vault 32 to find their crop field. And it's funny the way that they present it is because like Chet needs a break from the craziness of Steph's labor. And I think it's funny too how like Chet is this like laid back guy who kind of gets seduced by this very emotional, neurotic, manipulative woman, and like their dichotomy together is really interesting because he's kind of the opposite of her previous husband, Bert, but he's also kind of similar, and so I think he's gonna struggle to keep up with her intelligence, and obviously she knows more because she's from Vault, I believe it's 31. So she just has way more of a leg up in terms of knowledge when it comes to him. And she's just an interesting dynamic character because she seems to not really care about Bert by one hand, but then at the other, she's like mourning him, and then she wants revenge. So she's complex, and that complexity juxtaposed with Chet's kind of simpleness is really interesting. But the actor who plays Chet seems to be a very intelligent actor. So even though they want Chet to be dumb, he's not truly dumb because the actor's performances are so perfectly delivered. The lines are so well executed that you really like Chet. And I have a feeling that Chet's intelligence level is not as low as they initially intended to present to us, just because that actor is so good. So this is where we kind of mention it. They're going through the vault, and it looks like, there's a lot of death and destruction. It's very interesting, and I wrote a bunch of notes, but like someone, let's see here. I don't know what the people of Vault 32 were up to, but it was anything but innocent. A murderer in a cage paying the price for what you did to us. And then I don't know what the people of Vault 32 were up to.
We're getting loads of clues in this vault.
Right.
What's going
like
on.
The Raider. So I think he talks to the Raider, and the Raider tells him like, hey, whatever you thought was in there isn't in there, and that's what's like causes them to investigate.
Like it was already
we
messed
see the
up
console.
when they got there, he was saying. Like, it's already evil, dude.
Right, and he gets denied access. That's where he goes and says for like getting out of the house. I really like the sign that says "This way to Vault 32." It again, like the branding of the vault is really California Adventure. If you've ever been to Disneyland and gone to California Adventure, like it's very, there's a new road forward, very highway, what is it? Yeah. Highway 56 or what, Route 66, very like bright Californian, cheery, like apple orchardy, And so the way that they wrote that sign, like this way to Vault 32, like you could picture how in an idealized world, that's okay. But clearly, Vault 32 is not some cheery place to explore. Another interesting emotional dynamic is that, again, they bring up that Chet is in love with Lucy and they're cousins. And it's just like, it's just a fact of the Fallout existence, I guess. I love the exploration of the abandoned vault. I think the storytelling is great. This is just kind of like the accumulation of the episode having so many strong character interactions, really great ambience, and the music as they're going into the vault is really ethereal and experimental, which I liked. But what were your thoughts of this?
I thought it was, now in hindsight, spoiler warning. I mean, guys, we've been talking about spoilers the whole time, but I remember at the the final episode where we find out that Lucy's mom and Lucy were outside of the vault, and then it got taken back in by Dad. I thought it was interesting to notice that, they got into the vault, the Raiders, like Moldaver got into the vault originally because she still had Mom's Pip-Boy, and to kind of see that connection and then just be like, whoa, I didn't put all these puzzle pieces together, but now since I finished watching the season, I can now see all the puzzle pieces, and they're all right here with like death to management, the Pip-Boy. This only happened, or the last detection was like 2 years ago. Like, this is like fresh, so it's within the lifetime, right? So something happened here within our lifetime with Lucy, right? So it's definitely setting it up and maintaining the horror aspect. Like I was mentioning earlier in the episode, I was like, this is super critical for Fallout, because there's so many times in the game where you're by yourself, you're alone going through a dungeon, it has that creepy dark atmosphere, and all of a sudden a mutant jumps out and you're in this crazy battle, right? I want to capture that horror aspect, and they're doing it really well with this storyline. It would be cool to see it creep in to like Lucy's storyline or even the Ghoul, like to have a little bit of this more like horror, but I think it's fair with how they're balancing the show right now.
That's a great point. Yeah, more horror if they can. So then after that, we're back at the grocery store, which we've covered most of this, but I already mentioned Martha. She's a great character. So the human captors are named Huey and Squirrel, and this is where they're lackadaisical. They're watching the thing. Lucy orders them to free the remaining 4 ghouls because she kind of pulls the robot on her with she like kind of creates her own weapon with the Abraxo cleaner. And she gets surprised when I think that she discovers that not all of the ghouls are on the same level of, consciousness. And, they're essentially going feral. So she's forced to kill Martha, which again is a reminder of the wasteland and how Lucy's ethics sometimes put her in danger. And I thought all of this had really great writing.
Well, she had a mirror the beginning of the episode where the Ghoul killed his friend, and so she kind of, in her weird way, had this like befriending moment with Martha.
That's so true.
Like, I want to save her, and I'm going to go by my morals, not the Ghoul's morals, and I'm going to take my higher road. But then she got a real life lesson of the wasteland of like, your morals don't always work. You're going to have to kill someone that you don't want to kill. And here we go, right? I think you could see that even as she walks out of the mart of like, she finally went through that baptism of fire, like you were saying. Like, she finally is on the other side. She looks different. She even has a different face, and a confidence about her. And then it almost is like she has like her new set of morals from that experience of mirroring the Ghoul and having to take out the other ghouls.
Right. Yeah, and then we go back to the vault, and this is where they do finally see the death to management. They see the Overseer, which is a really cool thing. We've mentioned that. And that, again, that Overseer skeleton is just so cool. Then they realize that it's Rose McClane. And then we get back to Lucy. She gives the Ghoul his vials, and this is where she says golden rule, motherfucker, which is cool. And then she leaves him with all the chems, and then he goes in and he watches The Man from Dead Horse on TV.
Yes.
And so I thought they tied together the ending really well.
Yes.
I think this is the best episode. Like, it just feels, like you said, so Fallout-y. There's a lot of great tie-ins between all the different characters. But yeah, any final thoughts on this episode?
I mean, I love how it started off with like, watching the Ghoul and feeling like, is Cooper Howard still in there? Like, can you show me if like he's just a bad guy now, or if like there's some redeeming qualities about him? And then him to get so Lucy gets gets broken down but lifted up by the end of the episode. And he's like kind of like wheezing, getting torn down this whole entire episode. And we get to see deeper into him. It's almost like we're taking off all the curtains, all the blinds, all the leaves off him. And we're really getting to see if Cooper Howard is in there. And I love that last scene of him dropping all of the vials, like risking breaking them in his hat. He just drops it. And this is what he needs the most to continue living. And he drops it because he sees an old tape of an old movie he hasn't seen in like over 200 years. And what movie was it? It was the movie we saw him filming where he didn't want to shoot the guy in the head, where he had that change in his career, where it almost kind of foreshadowed how he was going to be as the Ghoul. And he just puts it in and goes, sits down to watch him. Finally, we get to see that scene where he shoots Joey in the head, and he like acts it out and everything. And I thought that was cool because I think it did like tell me as the audience that Cooper Howard is still there. And in a way, meeting Lucy, while he's like trying to change Lucy's kind of helping him remember himself, which is kind of sweet.
I think you summed that up perfectly. Yeah, I totally agree. And yeah, I'm excited for the next episode, which will be called The Past. And if you guys aren't subscribed to the Yetti Den, subscribe here.
Yes.
And subscribe to JumbyJumbwa, JumbyJumbwa.
Yes.
And yeah, leave us a comment. Leave us a comment if you guys are watching along, and we will see you guys all next week. So yeah, see you later. Bye bye.